Greetings, geeks. Welcome to episode 471 of Geeks in Space. I am Rob Commander Taco Malda, and I am joined today by two of the finest geeks that you're ever going to meet who are willing to pretend that they are in low Earth orbit for 20 or 30 minutes and talk about nerd crap. I have Chris DeBona.
Hello, everybody.
And Rob Roseboom.
Good morning.
Did you guys successfully escape from New York?
Yes. It was a fine film to review.
It turned out it wasn't really that hard.
No.
It was way harder to get into New York than out of New York.
It's true.
I was reflecting on what Rob said. Zen said about the final car chase scene, and it was really not good. And like, if you watch it, you know, and I watched that very short segment again, wasting an inordinate amount of my remaining lifetime. I said, wow. So ostensibly they're dodging mines that have been placed. And then he says, turn right, no, left or something, right? It was really like Three's Company level bad. I mean, it's not like he was far away. He's like, turn left, and he turns right. He's like, not right, left. He says like this really dumb thing. Well, and I'm like, this is not good writing. And also, you know, so they use the Chain of Rocks Bridge in St. Louis, and it's like a 2-lane wide bridge somehow. And so they're like, I'm like, and they had sort of a slalom course with Rex. And so he's like, turn right, no, left. And I'm like, there was no left. There was no, what are you talking about? It's just this and that. And so you're going to hit whatever mine. And then when they hit the mine, the cab breaks in half lengthwise perfectly, like, you know, with a Sawzall. And I'm like, this doesn't make,
when we watched that sequence, I actually thought for a moment that the cab was designed to break in half, like it was an ejection seat or something, because the brake was so clean. It was a little confusing to me.
Yeah, and it was a steam cab, so maybe that's how you have to make steam cabs, so they break in half precisely.
Right.
So
it's like OSHA rules, you know.
Yeah, for steam cabs.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of OSHA rules, it turns out that there's an ISO standard for making a cup of tea.
Of course there is.
Of course there is. But I put the video up, and you should watch it. There's a standard like carafe that you're supposed to use, and it holds a fixed amount of water, and it's got little grooves in it to keep the leaves in, and you're supposed to put in a certain number of grams of leaves, and there's just like, there is a standard for, and you drink out of the bowl that it comes with, because everything has to be according to the specifications. And I did like that in the video, the guy's like, it's not the best cup of tea. But, you know, it is standard. So if you and I...
a cup of tea.
Yeah, if you and I drink the same cup of tea on opposite sides of the planet using the same leaves, we will get the same taste, even though it's not the best taste. That tickles me.
Yeah, I think, too, like, I can't think of any other food or beverage that has rules about it that span so many different cultures than tea. You know what I mean? Almost everyone has tea, and they all have their rules for how you are supposed to consume it or make it, you know?
Like what the normal cup of tea, what a regular is. Yeah.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
I mean,
so the thing I was going to, sorry, go ahead.
I would say, of course, the Japanese take that to a ridiculous level, like they do so many things.
They truly are much better than us in every way.
Well, they have a lot more rituals.
So let's talk about standards with relation to food. Have I mentioned my cheese standard, my favorite cheese standard?
Is this in any way related to your iced tea procedures or your Caesar salad procedures? Or because I got to tell you, Chris, you got a lot of procedures when it comes to foodstuffs.
Are you Japanese?
I'm not Japanese.
Do you think you're turning Japanese?
They're fine people. I don't think so.
Do you really
I don't think so. I don't really think so.
Okay.
So there's an ISO cheese specification standard, right? And it has firmness designations going from extra hard, hard, firm, semi-hard to soft, right? And there's a ratio of dry matter to moisture for each level. And it was also adopted by doctors for an ISO standard for stool softness for measuring gut health. So that's like my favorite standard story because it's the same language, it's the same proportionality, and it turns out that cheese and poop have that in common. So I wanted to share that with you guys.
So you're usually looking for a Colby, not a Brie, is what you're saying. For healthy.
Definitely not a burrata, you know.
Yeah.
I've mine's been more like a fontina. That hurts. I don't like it.
Or like a Parmesan. Like,
yeah.
All right. Apple is supposedly going to be announcing that the Macs are finally going to move to ARM chips. So there's that happening.
So I was there when they went from the Motorola 68,000 series to the IBM Power 603 series. And that was very hard. I was running a network of 1,200 Macintoshes, and they were running our email. They were running all kinds of stuff at the company I worked at. And it was honestly brutal, that transition. They did not handle it well. And then they went from that to Intel, and they handled that a little better, honestly. And now they're going to go to ARM. And it's like, honestly, just sell them iPad Pros. What are you doing here? Create the iPad Pro book. You know, just, you know, let this one maybe fade away as software becomes more and more rare on it or something. I don't know. But yeah, it's just, it's a little early for an ARM MacBook. Let me just say.
I don't know. That's kind of Apple's deal, though. They're always a little early with a lot of stuff. Apple is either way late or a little early.
Yeah. Yes, they have a deal. It is true.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens of it. I think you're right. The Apple's in a hard place, though, right? Because their diehards require Mac OS, but all of their money comes from iPhones and iPads.
Yeah.
So they have to put more engineering time, production time, more cost, more R&D into the thing that's way harder. Because you could migrate your phone to a different CPU and whatever. Like, it wouldn't matter. Like, the way that their ecosystem is locked in, they would just click a convert button on the server side and it would just be done. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it would just be like that.
Yeah, I am no longer interested in paying the Apple tax when it comes to my laptops anyway. So unless an employer gives me one, whatever.
Yeah. They're just not that nice when you compare them to like the Dell XPS line, the Razer Stealth. I mean, these are amazing laptops. They have incredible power, frankly, and you're paying a premium for them because they're high quality ones, but not like the Apple premium. And also, it's when you look at the last like 6 years, they're getting praised for fixing their keyboard. I'm like, thank you for stopping hitting me, Tim Cook. I can't be in an abusive relationship with my laptop for 6 years. I just can't do it.
It's interesting. I mean, Apple is always a story of legacies, and the legacy of from 2000 until maybe 2010, where their laptops were just the only choice for laptops because they were so far ahead of everybody else in terms of just laptop quality. And then when the phones came out, for several years, iPhones were just so far ahead of everybody else. And then...
Hey.
Yeah, because everybody really loved those Android phones in 2007. Those were great phones, Chris. But they had a huge head start.
It was 2008. I have so many opinions about this. First of all, sure, they had a head start because they spent most of their time on the phone yelling at us saying, if you dare use a slide to unlock, we're going to sue the pants off of you. We're going to do whatever we can to control you. On a daily basis, they were trying to tell us what to do. And it's like, we came out with an app store first. They took like another 6 to 12 months. You know, I know everyone likes to say, Apple really revolutionized everything, but it's like, the HTC One Plus, which was a Windows phone, did everything that these phones did. It's just they didn't know how to market it, you know, and it was higher quality and higher resolution and higher everything than the original iPhone. I don't want to go.
I think history might show you to be a little biased on this, Chris.
Yes, I did launch Android, and Android does have 80+% market share. So I guess history has judged me properly.
That's what I'm saying.
I will, and I don't want to go down the whole, you know, not as good as a Nomad road here with you, because you yourself know the pain of history rewriting itself. But yeah, it's like, I don't know where I was going with this.
Well,
but the long and short of it was,
what I'm saying, Chris, is that Apple has a history, and they repeated it with I mean, the Mac, with their notebooks, with OS 10, for crying out loud. They release a thing that is leaps and bounds ahead of the alternative. OS 10.1 or 0.2 basically crushed Linux on the desktop because they made a Unix that was 100% better than any Unix alternative. And they did so in an era where their laptops were the hands down best laptop, no questions asked. iPhone repeats that, iPad to a lesser degree, and I don't know that they've had anything approaching that success for a long time. Now the question is, are they going to be able to make an ARM chip that is fast enough to be a laptop in 2001 and reclaim some of that, or has that ship sailed? And I mean, my crystal ball doesn't have anything to say.
Yeah, I know. Well, and the other side of this is, remember, when we say ARM chip, we mean the Apple taped out series of ARM chips, right? So it gives them a level of control over the direction of the architecture that they want, right? So that's the story I'm sure some people are telling. But what they want is, they want to go to TSMC, get their 2+ node, ARM chip taped out, and they can say, hey, look at us, we're the most advanced, and all the rest. Those Intel guys, they suck, and they can market against Intel, which Intel's is like, all right, whatever. Okay.
Well, Intel's been doing a great job of marketing themselves. They don't need any help.
Well, I mean, it's also anti-AMD. I mean, we should be clear, right? But it's like, what's funny about it is, there are places where if they go ARM, they're going to leave behind a great deal of creators. I mean, you can't tell me that an ARM is going to run Premiere exports in less than geologic time.
So
if they're
you might be wrong on this one, because I think that in the modern era, we figured out how to divert the GPU work from the CPU work, and you can let that ARM be super cheap and super efficient and super good at power management, and keep your windows moving around nice and smooth, keep your network packets shoveling nice and safe, and then you have your GPU that provides the oomph that the power user applications require.
Sure.
And I gotta say, man, I've been doing video editing on a Ryzen 3900, and my 8-year-old, 9-year-old Mac was fine. Logic is a better piece of software in a lot of ways for things than a lot of the alternatives, and the performance was fine. Not lighting the world
you
on
might be
fire.
right. You might be right, but I think that they have an uphill battle to convince like Adobe and the rest to port to ARM, because they were they've been doing a lot in Windows that just hasn't made it to the Mac.
Well, but that's
it's funny. John Masters in the channel, he works on ARM servers, so he's like, ARM's pretty great. I'm like, yeah, John's gonna say that, sure. But
but I don't know. I mean, we beat this dead horse. Bill and Ted's, man. The trailer's out.
Did you watch the trailer?
Yeah, more than
What'd
once.
you think?
More than once. I mean, I'm all in.
What'd you think?
It's just a teaser.
We're gonna see it.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, it doesn't look great, does it, fellas?
It doesn't.
Shut up, it's got death in it.
Watch it.
Particularly when they meet the hugely muscle-bound versions of them in a prison in the future or something.
That was pretty funny.
He's got excellent tats across his chest.
Yeah, I have a feeling that they left it all in the trailer. Like, every good scene is in the trailer. You know what I mean? It's one of those things, and that's pretty disappointing.
I hope you're wrong. I hope that given 20 years to write this thing, that they actually did something significant. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I'm going to obviously watch it regardless of what trash they set on fire and put in a trailer, but, you know.
I don't know. I have to be honest with you. I'm kind of glad they're just two pretty older guys. You know, it's like they didn't try to young them up and all the rest. It's like, you know, and it's almost like it gives out the thing that, you know, Keanu and Alex are still pals, you know, and they're like, you know, let's do another one together. We haven't done anything together. It's like our podcast. This is their version of the podcast.
There you go.
You know, so
they're
like,
paid
this
a
is
lot
how we can
more.
keep up with each other.
They're paid a lot more.
I will also say
It's
that Keanu aged a little bit better, I think.
Yeah.
Than Alex Winter?
Yeah.
I'm going to disagree. I think they both aged about the same. If you look at the 39 seconds in, they you know, they're a little puffier.
Alex looks a little puffier, a little bit more worn down than Keanu to me. Not bad yet, though. Not like, you know, when you see Clint Eastwood in something now and you're like, oh my God, he's a corpse.
He's yelling at a chair. Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah.
All right. So did you watch the Gamers Nexus takedown of Thermaltake?
Oh, you know I did. So confirm for me, was there a lot of time cube jokes in that one? It seems like there were some time cube jokes in there.
There was a lot of like pocket dimension type humor.
Yeah, it was when he goes on a rant, man. It's fantastic.
That is my favorite thing on that channel for sure.
Oh God, what was the one he did? The Verge, when the Verge did a machine review. He's like, listen, if you're gonna do it, at least do a little more work. You know, just
try.
Try.
Here's the thing, like, you know, I've never met the guy. I don't know if he's the world's biggest tool or not, but like, he honestly sounds like he's trying to help. Like, come on, guys. You could just like, and that to me feels so much like
he's an earnest, sweet guy.
It feels like our chat rooms in like 2002, like looking at every news story that was like 80% of the way there, and it's like, just do this. Like, it's not hard. Yeah. Just do that, and then it's cool. Just a little bit. But no. Yeah, I liked like they didn't understand the whole thing where he has the excerpted phone conversation with the marketing guy where he's asking about how they computed that it's 20% colder. It was like trying to explain to them Kelvin versus Celsius. Like, you can't do that. That's not how math works.
Doing the calculators. Like, so if you actually turn this into Kelvin, you'll find that it's actually 3.12%. And it's like,
it's like, you guys don't know math.
It was so good. So yeah, Thermaltake, sigh. You know,
it was so good. One of the most enjoyable things to watch. Hey, let's see if this audio will come through. I don't know if it's going to. Did you? I'm
sure I've pointed out that I got them the keyboard mouse mat from them. So go buy their stuff if you're listening to this.
Can you guys hear this audio? Does that come through?
No.
All right. F it. There's Toto played on Tesla Coils.
Open Tesla Coils. Yeah.
It's pretty great. I highly recommend that because, you know, it is electricity.
Because it's amazing.
And there's a dude in like a polo shirt and sandals sitting in a dark park with giant bolts of electricity in front of him. It's kind of awesome.
For sure, my favorite musical story of the week was the Golden Gate Bridge, though. We didn't talk about that yet, did we?
No, and Chris, you've you could drive there right now and listen to that music if you wanted to.
I could. I have not driven to the Golden Gate Bridge and listened to the dirge of San Francisco, the morning tones. You know. Yeah. So the thing is they've the audio comes through the stream for what it's worth, is what one of our listeners said. So while you were playing Africa, it was working.
There you go.
That's nice. Thank you, Christopher, whoever you are. So the Golden Gate Bridge, when I first moved here, didn't have a suicide barrier net. It didn't have, you know, a lot. It had a couple of phone booths. Blue. It was still it was always been that color. But it has these phone booths that say, if you're having a hard time, pick up the phone and we'll talk to you, right? To try to keep people from jumping, right? So, and then over time they added the nets. to catch people who jump. And some people like could get past the nets, and I'm like, wow, they're really determined. And then they sort of reinforce them and change them, and then they put these sort of funny barriers along the rail itself, so you couldn't like a cat couldn't jump through it or something. I don't know. And then they changed it recently, and they created one that acts like a reed in the wind.
Yeah. There's
but
audio.
You can hear it from Chrissy Field. You can hear it from the Presidio.
Yeah.
Like at Industrial Light and Magic, I bet you there's like a little vibration on the wall.
If you touch the Yoda statue, he like gets angry about the noise.
Yeah, you can feel the force.
Tranquil, this isn't.
The volume was quite impressive.
Yeah.
How far it carried, and just the straight up volume. In one of the videos, you see someone walking on the walkway there. It looks like they're in a golf cart or some sort of little maintenance vehicle of some type.
Yeah. And
they're listening to U2, and it almost matches up perfectly at the beginning. So it's great.
Yeah. There's a nifty little article. Al Jaffee of Mad Magazine caricaturing fame is retiring. Somebody made a CSS page folding routine to simulate his back page inside cover of Mad Magazine. I never had a lot of Mad magazines, but my grandpa had Mad magazines like in a corner in his basement. So when I went to my grandpa's house, I would read Mad magazines. I don't know why he had them. I don't think he read them. But I always liked those fold-ins.
Yeah, I read a lot of them. I also was a big fan of Cracked magazine.
Sure.
Which, was the cheaper knockoff. But yeah, I dug those when I was a kid.
Yeah, they were really neat. I did look for it. It was one of the first things I would do if I picked up a Mad magazine. I'm like, all right, let's go read the back. And sometimes it was janky, but it was pretty good. So
I was always I remember going to the like magazine store and trying to figure it out without putting a crease in the page because I didn't want to actually buy the magazine.
Cheap son of a bit. Yeah.
Well, when you're 8, in a store, you don't have the 95 cents. You'd rather take that 95 cents and buy a can of Shasta, of like warm Shasta for 15 cents.
Warm Shasta. Nothing takes off paint like warm Shasta.
Don't forget a pouch of Big League Chew.
For sure.
It was like chewing on tobacco, but it was bubble gum.
You could get a Zagnut bar, which was like half the price of any other brand of candy bar, but very, very large, like Butterfinger volume. I mean, as a sugar-seeking 4th grader, you learn to maximize your penny for sugar, for your penny, your glucose to dollar ratio.
Well, when I was a young man, you used to wear an onion on the belt, which was the style at the time. You trade 2 Bs for a bit and a nickel. And come on, man, we're gonna bore ourselves off the damn podcast. All
right, well, let's talk about the U.S. military and the fact that Netflix got the trademark to Space Force before the military did.
So I thought this was pretty funny, but like many stories involving intellectual property, was inherently a non-story.
Of course.
So Netflix probably got the trademark to a television program or entertainment based on the term Space Force. The U.S., who they got it from, though? The U.S. government. So the U.S. government has all the other rights and then some to do whatever the hell they want with the term Space Force, because they're the ones with the big guns and issuing the trademarks to the Netflixes of the world. There's a difference between a company and a government of 330 million people.
Yeah, but it's a funny story, Chris. Remember the funny?
I know. I'm killing the funny here, but it's just like, I'm like, really? Does people really think that? And even if they did have to follow the rules of trademark, they would have the Space Force trademark for the armed services, Space Force,
which actually really makes
me
angry.
And it would be no problem,
because I want to start my own armed service and I want to be able to compete on equal terms. Actually,
well, you could call it something else, like force space.
Isn't that what the Second Amendment even like literally is for? Like, the government shall make no laws to prevent you from making your own space force.
Well, that's the question, right? Was it the goal of the framers to enable any citizen to create their own launching capability to fight back on enemies, foreign and domestic? That's the question.
And orbital. I'm mostly concerned about orbiting enemies now.
Okay, the high frontier is your place.
Well, I mean, if they're going to come up into my territory, I have to defend
Oh, right,
myself.
because we're in low Earth orbit, right? I keep having to
Right.
remind myself.
Hello,
I'm not in a shed in California. Yeah.
No, look at me. I'm in a spaceship.
You're in a Falcon, right? So yeah.
Who knows, man? I could be called upon at any moment to dodge something.
Just wait until we figure out that aliens are living inside our hollow Earth, and we have to have Mantle Force, who goes down inside the Earth.
Team Burrow.
Yeah.
Or the people who exclusively work between the lowest most wells and the mantle, and they would be Crust Force.
Yeah. Crust Force.
Crust Force.
Well, and we have the Navy in their submarines, of course, but does that mean that they're truly equipped to like handle combat like in the at the bottom of the Marianas Trench, or like on one of those like the mountain volcano ranges at the bottom of the ocean? I feel like we might want to have a new force dedicated to that.
Trench Force.
Trench Force, sure.
Trench Force. And then eventually that will, the Navy will absorb them, sort of like they have the Marines, So Trench Force will be a part of the Navy from now on.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can just repurpose
Navy,
the Coast Guard.
Air Force.
Just take
Marine,
the Coast Guard and
Space
sink
Force,
their ships.
Trench, Crust, Mantle.
Joint Chiefs of Staffs meetings are getting a little weird.
They are.
Can you imagine?
Especially when we make our first mole person chief of staff of Mantle Force.
Well, I'm picturing a guy with like a monocle and like looking like a mole. Like look at the Underminer from the Pixar movie.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here, sir. I'm ready to serve.
What you don't understand about the mantle is yada yada yada. Yeah.
Practically writes itself.
Space Force.
Space Force.
Mantle Force. Trench Force.
Yeah. Nothing is beneath us. That's their slogan.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Beautiful.
Oh.
I think that's actually the line from The Incredibles. Nothing is beneath me.
Oh, yeah.
All right, folks. I think it might be time for us to go about our day.
Trench Force. We do well under pressure.
That's right. Hey, let's thank Chris DeBona.
Oh, thank you for letting me pun on Space Force. I mean, that's going to be the highlight of my day.
Well, I think our homework should be to come up with like a Mantle Force theme song or something.
Are there theme songs for the Army that aren't Village People based?
I said, young man, go shoot people in the
Army
face. I
themes.
said, young man, you got D's in math. I said, young
Oh, it's The Army Goes Rolling Along.
Oh. All right.
There
Thanks,
you go.
Rob Roseboom.
Yep. I'll see you guys later.
I'm Rob Commander Taco Malda, and I'd like to thank you for listening. I'm going to see if this other button plays a different song, and we'll see you guys next time on Geeks in Space.